election that's going to happen in November, and it's seemingly the only thing that matters to global media is which president is sitting there. Is it the guy with the orange hair who's being tried, and the people are calling him narcissist and a psychotic, or the white-haired dude who's completely lost his marbles and has no idea, and is for the last 40 odd years in his political life has always been on the wrong side of history. And what's crazy is that you've got two presidents, and today we're going to talk about the latter. The latter president, current president, Joe Biden, president number 46, who's been sitting in the White House for over 3 years, has shown that he is the biggest hypocrite you could possibly imagine, with ratings worse than Jimmy Carter as president, and has shown that no matter what he does, how he does it, his handlers have to spin it in such a way because what comes out of that mouth, out of that brain, has hurt Americans, Ukrainians, Israelis, and the rest of the world for the last 3.5 years. Welcome back to the Rent Network. I am David Solomon. He is Stuart Brisgell. We generally, on every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern, we broadcast these unfiltered podcasts. We span the news, pop culture, politics, and so much more. We dissect today's absurdities. We dive stupid, deep-seated issues, and we really keep it real and straight to the point. We have no media, the media. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Stuart is typing away and look information, buckle up because we're ready to rock and roll. All right, here's the thing. We're dealing with an incredible amount of stupidity in the United States. The world wants to focus on a trial, not on a criminal, Joe Biden. A world wants to focus on, the attitude by Trump, his racism, his background, but not on the fact that Biden has been a racist his whole life, held a hand with the Klan, threatened Israel in the 1980s to withhold, again, even then, weapons for an unimportant war. Biden has been wrong, wrong, wrong. But Stuart, these last 3.5 years, let's wrap it up for our friends here as they're thinking of their November election voting ideology, where they think they should be heading.
I want to just start with some pictures here, David. Now, if some of you may not remember these images in the newspaper every single day, on every news broadcast, every single day, and announced from the podium back then was once a week. Bring home our 52 hostages that were held for 444 days by the Ayatollah Khomeini and Company from November 4th, 1979 to January 20th, 1981. Conversely, I'd like to show you a picture of just some of the 130 plus hostages, of which we already know 30 or 40 of them are dead. And we know that 30 or 40 of them, Gazan government, Hamas, knows where they are. That accounts for about 70 people. That means there's another 60 people that are missing, that are hostages. What is the difference? Why am I showing you these images? Because what you don't find from this government is the insistence of showing you what is really going on, what is really happening. But we had, for literally 444 days from the podium, this being announced. It is mind-boggling to actually understand what priorities are this government is taking. We can take it another step further. In 2022, December, this current government of Biden and clan were on the podium talking about Griner, an athlete of women's basketball who went to Russia with drugs. contraband, illegal substances, and was arrested. And that was something that was a priority for this government. And the legal background is she had vape cartridges of marijuana. I'm sorry. She's a basketball player. She's not a diplomat. She's not above the law. But this government did a swap between her and one of the biggest terrorists called Victor Bout to get her release, plus other undisclosed concessions. But when it comes to talking about the 130 or so, some of which are Americans and other international citizens, you don't hear it mentioned at all on the media. And you have to ask yourself why. David today wanted me to know, what are we going to rant about today? And I told him, as I tell you, I want to rant about what mistakes this government constantly does. It is inadequate. It doesn't do what you want it to do, but it says it does. And you're believing this government. Like Obama was a knight in shining armor, the armor. Joe Biden and clan are as good. Trust us. Believe us. When a government says, trust us, believe us, that's when you need to put on the real strong glasses. Because I will tell you, you cannot trust a government when it says, trust us, believe us. We're making the right decisions for you. We, the people, Canada felt left out, so it built its own in the 1960s, Charter Bill of Rights, right? Because it didn't have one. And in the United States, we have the Constitution and a Charter Bill of Rights. These are the fabric of our democracies. And when they say, trust us, we got your back. We're making the right decisions for you. That's when you have to take a pause. When the Israeli government, a country that's been at war since the 50s, actually late 40s, says we need to do this to solve our problem. And a government that, and by the way, and a president of the United States, a politician for over 40 years, has been on the wrong side of every single military decision that has come in his 40 years of politics. He was against taking Osama bin Laden. Obama was like for it. Biden was against it. Biden was for withdrawal of Afghanistan. No one else was. Biden has been against every incursion that the United States has made for 40 years. Its intervention in the 1980s. He was against Ronald Reagan on forcing a capitulation of Gorbachev. His votes are on the record, and they don't make much sense. So why does an 81-year-old man today make sense? If you saw his only real, and it wasn't so real, it was a CNN softball interview, does that man seem capable of standing up to a KGB trained operative by the name of Vladimir Putin? How about Xi Jinping? How about the Ayatollah Khomeini, where his signals are, keep going, buddy, we got your back. We're not going to let them bomb Hamas to the 3rd century. Which, by the way, seems to be the only way that regime seems to want to respect. And why do I say that's the only thing they respect? Because when they didn't have billions, hundreds of billions of dollars that the Biden government has given them, they were an invertebrate. Their people starve just as much today as they did years ago. It's amazing. The warpness of the extreme Muslim caliphate that's having our college kids run around saying intifada, intifada, won't bring back these 130 hostages. It's not for Israel to be kind and Israel to be careful. It's for Hamas to return these 130 hostages. But you want to know something? Life means something to the Israelis, but life doesn't seem to mean anything to Hamas. So why are we demanding the Israelis to do more when they, in fact, have done more than any other government? You know what? The weapons given to Ukraine are gone unchecked. Hey, do what you want. It's important. Russia can't be an invading army, just like we can't encourage China. But Israel has to be careful. Women and children are being bombed indiscriminately in Ukraine. But I don't hear the condemnation of Russia by the same people that are condemning Israel. How about United Nations standing on its head, denouncing what Russia is doing? I don't. Why don't we hear United Nations clamoring about the Uyghurs that are being massacred every single day in China? But you don't. The same people that are calling for the end of Israel from United Nations are clearly not listening to what they're saying. David, these hostages are obviously not being kept by Geneva Convention standards. These hostages haven't been kept in accordance with the War Act. So let me ask you a question, David. Tell me how you feel.
Well, listen, it's not a fair question because I think everybody, whoever has listened to this rant in the last few months, knows exactly how I feel. But let's just put this cards on the table. Crooked Joe has been crooked from day one. It's all about Joe. Joe, the brand. We know about this. We know that when it comes to hostages and comes to Israel, on the public side, Joe Biden wants to show he's a good friend. Benjamin Netanyahu, in his own autobiography, said that Biden was a better friend to Israel than Obama, which was what not hard to say. But in 1982, he threatened Menachem Begin to withhold weapons when Israel went into Lebanon. And yes, that was part of Reagan and the administration, and back then, Caspar Weinberger and what have you. And yeah, sure. But again, it was Biden who threatened Menachem Begin. Begin said, fine, keep your weapons. We'll do it without you. And again, the same message 42 years later. You want, keep your weapons. We'll go in without you. Because there's just this the politics for Joe Biden. The political gain is incredible. Look, you talked about the hostages in Russia. Okay, let me tell you, there's some names here that people have forgotten. Not just Evan Gershkovich, who was the photographer for the Wall Street Journal, but there's also former Marine Paul Whelan, who was arrested in 2018, and most recently, Stuart, and I just found this out because it doesn't get any news. Staff Sergeant Gordon Black was stationed in South Korea, traveled to Russia on his own, not on official business.
Yeah,
and
he
was detained in Russia. Now, here's the thing. There are no votes for Joe Biden here. There's nothing at stake. Bring him home. Don't bring him home. What's the point? And that's Joe. Joe only thinks of Joe and what Joe's legacy is going to be. And Joe's legacy is going to be that, he wanted to bring peace to the Middle East, and he blew it up by telling the whole world he's talking to Saudi Arabia out loud. Okay? He wanted votes. Okay? That's all that matters. Bidenomics. Why would you tie your name into an economic or failed economic plan, which they don't now use, obviously? Okay? Because everything's about Biden. Biden's been done the most for Americans. If you ask Karine Jean-Pierre, that's all that he does. He is the best, most successful president in American history. He's rewritten the Constitution. He has done more for Americans than any president. He's walked on the moon. Okay? He's done everything. all the spin that's being, and I started that with an intro, the spin from the White House is only to try to prop up a guy who is a prop. He is not a president. He's a prop. And what's happened today, Stuart, and what you had said was, you know, you know, earlier today we've heard that UN personnel were severely hurt by Hamas rockets. Is any of that condemnation going to come from the White House? Of course not. We don't condemn terrorists. We don't condemn terrorists. We condemn Israel, a partner and an ally. And what Joe Biden learned from Obama is, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer, right? But in this case, it's ostracize your friends. He ostracized Saudi Arabia, Obama did. Biden's going to do the same thing to Israel. The college campuses could have been, all these protests could have been eliminated. But of course, what does Joe Biden think? Votes. Oh my God, what do I have to do? Well, I'm going to lose votes. I'm going to lose votes. All that matters is losing votes. Yep. And Joe, the brand, his son, his family, crooked, corrupt, and disgusting. Now, folks, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a better alternative. I'm not here to say that. I'm just sick and tired of telling people, but Trump is this, but Trump is that. I don't care. Understand that when you go into that ballot box in less than 6 months, that the gentleman that you're going to put in that White House, we have really horrifying choices. You got a racist, card-carrying racist in Cornel West. You got a guy in RFK that, I don't know, this guy is off the rails. The Dems called him a Republican. The Republicans want to have nothing to do with him. He is just he's just talking spit from wherever. You have Trump, who's, whatever, but you've got Biden, who's simply a crook and is ready to hurt people. What Stuart said, and we got to wrap this up, 133 hostages, several Americans in there, and because he can't gain a vote off of that, he didn't care if they die or rot. That's sad. And while Israel today is Israel's Remembrance Day for fallen victims of wars and of terror, Stuart, we stood last night and over 25,000 Israelis or people have killed, 48, because of wars not started by Israel, terror attacks not started by Israel. And the number escalated on October the 7th, where 1,400 more families are now mourning today because of Hamas. And the world blames Israel. Joe could have shut them up, but his lack of leadership proved he can't do it. And with that,
David,
folks, we got to wrap it up, Stuart. So last word to you.
If a government says, trust me, vote for the other government party. That simple. History does prove that statement. David, off to the races. I want to leave with this one picture.
All right, folks, listen. Those victims, the 400 plus.
Those are the 400. Those are 52 hostages.
The 52 hostages, yeah.
Yep.
And then there's Stuart, could you put the 133 back on screen as I wrap up, please, today on Israel's, Memorial Day? Thank you for tuning in, folks. I know that this is a tough dialogue, and I know people don't want to hear this, but this is the reality of today. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We broadcast at noon Eastern. We do one take. We don't care how we sound. Sometimes we argue. Sometimes we're on the same page. But it's all about understanding perspectives. And the media is not giving you a reality and a dose of perspective. Do your homework, dig, and you'll find that the reality is out there. Don't trust the media, unfortunately, because they're giving you a varnished version of it. If you don't believe me, check out Bill Maher's rant on Friday night. Unbelievable explanation. We genuinely appreciate your feedback. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, please remember these people who are on screen. Their families are waiting for them to come home. Their families are waiting for any news. We really need for them to come home. And this war would end right away if they would all come home.